Hey guys, this is Professor Bowen-Moore again. I am going to talk to you about your sketches for the UI UX. So once you have done your research, once you have completed your print cover of your magazine that you've come up with, you will need to start thinking about your UI UX or user interface, user experience of your magazine mobile app. So remember to keep in mind this is not a tool app. This is just a online or mobile publication of your magazine brand. And we're just designing part of one issue here. So this will correlate to your print cover in many ways. In terms of the image you used on the cover, in terms of your cover lines, those things are the main thing. So with your sketches, I provided a template to use. We will be designing for a iPhone 6, 7, or 8 Plus. So we want to keep your screens and your sketches proportional to that the phone screen, so that we can get everything on the screen proportionally, and you can think about the actual size that you're working with here. So to use the templates, if you don't have a printer, what you can do is pull up the template on your computer screen, and then you can put a sheet of paper over on top of the phone screen and just trace it like and use your computer screen like a light table. So that's one way that you can do that to get your sketches if you don't have a printer. If you have a printer, you can just print out as many pages as you need. Each template page has 3 phone screens on it. So you can just design within that. And I have some examples here. How many screens you will need for your mobile app of your magazine is up to you and your vision of how you are navigating through your magazine publication. So that there's no specific number here, but you do need to include the required parts. So we will be designing your widget or your icon that will be on the phone screen that we click on to get into your app. So we will need to include that. You're going to be designing that as part of the UI UX, probably first actually, before you start even designing the screens. So we want to include that in a sketch and just kind of show your icon on the page. So we want to label your sketches as well. So notice here we've got the phone screen with the icon in place. And then if we were to click on this, we would end up on the home page of your app. So on the home page, you've got to think about your primary navigation as well as the secondary navigation and some of the other things that we might see that you're not required to provide links for, but you need to think as if we were navigating throughout your entire app. So you've got to include some of those little extensions and things that you would need there. And again, for images, just use a square or rectangle with the X going through it so that we know that that's an image or graphic. And make sure you label. So here is the home screen, primary navigation view. So this would be our top stories of this issue. And this would relate to the cover lines on the print issue of your magazine. Obviously, the top and more prominent cover line is going to relate to your feature article. But notice I have my logo type or a nameplate, so to speak, for my app here at the top. I've got a search icon, and I've got my 3 little bars here that would represent my secondary menu options here if I were to click on that. And we'll get to that in just a moment. And obviously, we can also include in other parts of the screen a menu here as well. So we call this a hamburger stack in slang design terms. So the next screen over, I've just duplicated this home screen because what I want to show is the result. If I were to click on the secondary navigation or the hamburger stack, what would that look like? So this is the home screen secondary navigational view. So if I were to click on this hamburger stack, this pop-down menu would appear on top of my other screen. So I want to include that. You're going to make up what those options are as part of the design of your navigation. So you need to include that. So what you may want to include here is we want to be able to access the feature article from the primary navigation as well as the secondary navigation. So make sure that we can do that. And you can research other magazines to determine how you want to create your navigational options here. Okay, so as we continue, we're going to imagine that we're accessing the feature article from the home page, either the primary navigation or clicking on the image or the cover line here, or if we were to go through the secondary navigation and click on today's articles. So the second page of sketches, now we're in the feature article. So you've got to include all the parts of the architecture that are required, and your sample article should label, it will label what those are. So you need your opening image with a caption. So this is the supporting image that goes with your feature. So you can either use the print cover image that you used in the print cover, or what you would possibly use, say if you had designed the feature article inside the print magazine, what is that opening image? So that's what you would put here. And we're going to include the deck, the byline, and photo credits. So as far as your photo credits, you're going to have multiple photos within your article. You can, like I said, you can get those from anywhere, but you're going to have to source them. So if you get them from the folder, you can just source them to University Communications. Or if it gives you a specific source in the source folder or the sample folder, you can use that. So if all of your photos come from the same source, then you can source it once with your byline at the beginning of the article. If they come from different sources, or say most of them are the same source, then you've credited those at the beginning of the article, and say there's one somewhere where this comes from a different source, you would need to source that small with that image and caption. So you will make up the captions for your photos that you use. So just make sure that you are wording those succinctly, concisely, and have that relate to the article. So we have our deck, our byline, photo credit. We have our drop cap for the body copy. So we have our main story here. Now you can design a scrolling screen in InDesign, but that's hard to show here. So I'm continuing the scrolling screen in this second sketch here. But as we go, I've also got at my feature article, I've got my running headline here. I've got my main headline here at the top of my sidebar as well, because anywhere we are in the app, you've got to think about, we want to be able to get back to the home page, we want to be able to get back to a menu, a secondary menu, and or a search. So keep those things in mind for each of the screens. You might want to replicate that running headline with the search, your logo type, and the menu on every page. In this case, we've got the name of the article here at the top, and we've got the logo type here that we can click on to get back to the home page. We've also got a search. So as I scroll, I'm labeling the parts of the architecture to ensure that we're not forgetting anything. You have to have a pull quote. Here's some more body copy. And you'll put the whole article in place when you design this. And as you do more images, you also want to have a link from the feature to the sidebar content. Now your article should give you an example of what you can use, sometimes multiple examples, so you will choose one of those options. Same with the pull quote. Some of those articles give you options to choose from. You only have to have one pull quote and one sidebar. So the sidebar is some sort of alternate information that relates to the feature story. Sometimes it's an infographic, sometimes it's a recipe. It just depends on what it contains. So here we've created what we call in the design world a shirt tail, which is basically a tab coming out from the side that indicates kind of like a kicker or a preview into what the sidebar is about. So an intro and link to the sidebar is what we need here. So if we were to click on that, it would lead us to an entirely new screen with all the sidebar information. So here is the sidebar screen here. I've got another image and I've got the sidebar content. Obviously the title. I've got another drop cap and another image here. And I can get back to the story as well as getting back to the home page. And you may even want to include a search on this screen as well. So with your images, how you do your captions is up to you. Some people put them right underneath the image, which is perfectly fine. Some people will put an expand icon. So say we were to click on this image, a screen would pop up over the image with the caption on it. So you can do that in different ways. So with your sketches, that's what we're looking for. A nice, organized, clear layout with clear navigational information of where to go and everything labeled so that you're not forgetting the parts of the architecture that are required, especially in your feature story. Okay? So if you have questions about this, please let me know. Otherwise, make sure you complete these by Wednesday of next week, April 22nd by midnight, and include images to the discussion forum for this topic. Okay? Thank you.